So yesterday and still today, we are still working on our learning target that says that we can identify parts of the expression. We can simplify expressions by combining like terms. And then what we're doing today is the distributive property. So we talked about the parts of the term yesterday, that we have a coefficient, that is the number value that is multiplied with a variable. Your variable is your unknown, your letter. And then you have your constant. The constants are the values that you are adding or subtracting that are just plain numbers. And that addition and subtraction signs will split up what your terms are considered to be. So 6x is the first term, a positive 2 is the second term. And then we did a little bit of practice. Then we also went through and talked about like terms and how like terms can be combined together. Remember, we also mentioned that x and x squared are not like terms because they don't have identical exponents. So therefore, they would not be considered the same thing. And remember also that it doesn't just have to have a variable. If it is just a number, if it's just a constant, they are also considered to be those like terms. So then we utilize those like term concepts to simplify our expressions down so that we have it all based off of a single term of x, maybe a single term of y, a single term of a coefficient, that kind of thing. Lucas, did you have a question? Okay, so you're just going to have to write it on a single sheet of paper then, okay? All right, so we did a little bit of practice. Yesterday, you also had an assignment that was loaded into Google Classroom. If you have not finished that, you have until Friday to get that submitted and turned in. So just keep in mind, guys, just keep in mind that as you continue to delay doing your work and everything is due at the end of the week, if you don't make the cutoff, you don't get a grade. In the grade book, it goes in as a 0, okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk today about distributive property. We went over it very briefly when we did our hexagon task exploration the other day. So we're just going to review over it again. Remember, with distributive property, what it is it's taking the factor that is on the outside of a quantity, and it's distributing the multiplication to each component that's on the inside of that quantity. Meaning that you are taking m and multiplying it to the a, and you are also multiplying it to the b. So a is a single term, and the value b, not just b, but plus b or minus b, that is also a single term. So that when you write it out, it comes out as m times a, and then m times b, and then whatever result you get from m times b, whatever sign it is, if it's a positive sign, you would put a plus in between the terms. If it was a negative, then that negative would act like a minus sign between the terms. I don't want you guys always thinking that, hey, if it's an addition here, then it means it's going to be addition on the outside. If it's subtraction, it's always going to be subtraction when you simplify it. Because if you get to a situation like number 2, where you're not just distributing, but you're distributing a negative, your signs change. When you distribute negatives, your operation will change to the opposite. Okay? So let's take a look. We're just going to do, we're going to do problem 1, 2, and 3 together. You're going to do 4 through 8 on your own. So taking a look at problem 1 has a term of a 2, a factor of 2, that's going to get distributed to the 3x and to the positive 7. So 3x is my first term in that quantity. That positive 7 is my second term in that quantity. So what I'm going to wind up doing is multiplying 2 times 3x and then 2 times the positive 7. Now when we multiply and there are variables involved, you just multiply with the coefficient, just the same as when we were adding or subtracting. We only focus on the coefficients and not the variable itself. When you are multiplying a term that has a coefficient and a variable and you're multiplying it by another number, you just multiply the numbers together and keep the variable term. So when we do 2 times 3x, that's going to result in 6x. Then when we do 2 times 7, that results in a positive 14. Again, I'm going to write the positive sign because it's going to act as an operator now, and it's positive 14. There's my final answer. That's as simplified as my expression is going to get. And again, please make note that these are algebraic expressions because they have variables involved. If it was only numbers involved, that would be called a numerical expression. Okay, algebraic means it's got the variables, it's got the algebra. Numerical means it's purely just number. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 2. Problem number 2, the factor that's getting distributed out is going to be a negative 4. So we're multiplying a negative 4 to each of our terms. Now our first term happens to be a 2x. Our second term happens to be a negative 3. Notice I'm going to include that minus sign with it. So that means I'm multiplying negative 4 times positive 2x. That's going to come out to being negative 8x. And then I'm going to multiply negative 4 times negative 3. And make note that that subtraction problem now becomes an addition problem because negative times negative is positive and 4 times 3 is 12. So we get negative 8x plus 12 as our final answer. It's an easy process to follow along when you are doing your distribution. And please also make note that what's on the inside of your quantity, of your parentheses, doesn't always have to just be 2 terms. You could have multiple terms, more than just 2, on the inside. You could also have terms on the outside of your parentheses that don't get multiplied to. Okay? So when you're doing distributive property, think of it kind of like when we distribute papers in the classroom. If I need to hand out a paper to you guys, I'm only going to give it to you that's inside the classroom. I'm not going to give it to the random 6th grader that's walking down the hallway because they're not inside the classroom. These parentheses act like it's a classroom, an enclosure. You are only distributing to what is inside that enclosure. Okay? So let's take a look at number 3. We're taking a negative 3 and we're going to multiply it to each of these terms. So I'm going to have negative 3 times my first term and a negative 3 times my second term. My first term happens to be a 5x. My second term happens to be a positive 6y. So I'm doing negative 3 times 5x. That's going to come out to a negative 15x. Then we've got negative 3 times 6y. Notice that originally it was addition, but now it becomes subtraction because a negative times a positive is a negative, and we get 18y. Now, why can I not go ahead and do negative 15 minus negative 18 here, Montserrat? Because the variables, they're different. One of them's an x, the other one's a y. It'd be kind of like you going home and deciding that you want to bake cookies using Brussels sprouts. You're not going to go ahead and combine sugar and, your baking goods with Brussels sprouts, okay? They are not the same. So keep it separate. All right, I want you guys to go ahead and independently, you're going to work on problems 4 through 8 so that I can make sure you understand the concept. If you've already done so, if you've already finished problems 4 through 8, then what you can do is you can log on to Google Classroom and go back to today's link. Today's activity link is now refreshed with your Delta Math assignment. You do have a Delta Math assignment that closes tomorrow at the end of class. So again, you guys have those Google Classroom activities from yesterday. You've got your IXLs and you've got your Delta Math that are all due at the end of class tomorrow. All right, let me go ahead and show you what I've got so that you can check your answers to make sure you've got the same process done. For problem number 4, it doesn't matter the fact that the coefficient or the factor that's being distributed is a fraction. You still distribute the same way. You just do the fraction times the 16. So 3/4 times 16 gives us 12, so that comes out to 12x. Then 3/4 times negative 8y comes out to a negative 6y, so you get 12x minus 6y for problem number 4. For problem number 5, you're distributing the negative 3 to the 6x and the negative 3 to the 5. That means you're going to get negative 18 minus 15. For number 6, you're distributing an 8 to the 3a and an 8 times negative 2b. That means you're going to get 24a minus the 16b. And then for problem number 7, you're doing negative 5 times the 2y and then negative 5 times negative 11. That comes out to a negative 10y plus 55. Number 8, again, it doesn't matter that it's decimals, it's still the same process. You're doing 0.8 distributed to that 1.2x and then 0.8 distributed to that positive 6.4. Once you've distributed to both terms, you're going to wind up having the simplified expression of 0.96x plus 5.12. Okay? Once you have that finished, you've got to get logged on. You've got, like I said before, you've got your Delta Math that's assigned for today. That is going through everything that we've learned in this past 2 days. So how to simplify expressions through the combining of like terms, and it's also going over what we just finished covering here, the distributive properties. If you did not finish your IXL, you need to have those finished before class is over tomorrow. If you did not finish your activities from yesterday, they are again due tomorrow. Please make sure you're keeping on top of things. Also a reminder, when you are finished with those Google activities from yesterday, what are you supposed to do to show me you're done? Logan, submit. Don't forget to click View Assignment, and you'll see the blue button that says Turn In. Once you've turned it in, then I can go through and make sure you've got them correct. One of them is self-checking, so that should be easy because it just populates with the picture if you've gotten the answers correct. The other one is not. The other one, you might get 1 wrong or 2 wrong. I'll go through and grade those by hand. Any questions on what you're doing for the rest of class period today? Lucas? Delta Math is a homework that's due when? Tomorrow. Remember, everything that we do for the week has a final due date at the end of the week. So you have a whole week to get all of your materials done. Yeah.
So the Delta Math due when school ends?
The Delta Math is due at the end of your class. And then I'm going to get your grades in so that I am ready to do my job, which is to send your project. Give me your opinion. Okay? Okay. Now, you were absent yesterday, so typically, since you were absent for the past couple days, you do get to have until Monday to do stuff. Okay? Why don't you get your computer at least logged in while you're finishing that? Okay. Remember, once you get the 5 out of 5 on the Delta Math for one section, move on to the next. Don't continue going in there. Some of you have a habit of going, oh, it says that need 5, but I'm going to do 8 questions or 9 questions. This is not one of those extra credit situations. It's not like IXL that if you go above and beyond it, that you get the extra credit. IXL is your only method for extra credit if you go above and beyond. So you have a triangle that has this side measurement, this side measurement, and this side measurement. You want to find perimeter. How do you find perimeter of the triangle? Remember when we did perimeter with the hexagon past exploration? Hold on one second. Perimeter was to add all the sides together, right? So you're adding all these things together. So you're adding your leg turns and M. It doesn't have leg turns. You're adding your leg turns and guys, remember, if you've got a subtraction sign but you don't have a number behind it, what invisible number do you know always exists? A 1. If you ever need to refer back to the board behind you, we've got that invisible math board behind you that lets you know every variable has a coefficient, whether it's written. Okay? There is always going to be something there. Every time you see a negative sign, that really means it's a negative 1 if it's not shown. Okay, so you always have a coefficient, whether you see it or not. It's that invisible 1. Be mindful of it. What's wrong with this? You just remember here on the desk. Yeah, let me go real quick.
You see the river she has on? Steeler Nation, right here.
Yeah, okay. You know, she was going to get some bonus points possibly if she had to finish doing the football on her Isle Math.
I have everything.
I was so excited to see that you were going football route on there, and then you just stopped. Yeah.
I was thinking about doing different teams, but
Everybody going, I was thinking about doing this, yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks on that.
but then I'm
That's
like,
my
2
dad's
weeks
birthday
with me,
plan,
because
so-
it's the quickest 2 weeks ever. That was short, that was 2 weeks.
That's 2 weeks, yes.
It is not,
to do the
that
Isle
was
Math
not
class.
2 weeks.
That's because you can have some work.
Mario did good, I'm guessing.
Yes, I did.
All right. Good job, Mario. Make sure you're focusing. Remember, you want to utilize every minute that you've got to be able to work on the material that you have in front of you. Okay.
I did a little gray on the dust.
There is no such thing as a low grade on the Delta Math because the Delta Math works just like IXL does. If you get something wrong, it gives you another question to try again. So you just keep going until you've got the completion. You get completed, and it's 100% completed in the corner, then 100% for the grade. Yes.
Yes, you are.
It goes quick though. It goes quick. Well, you're supposed to, but some people, you wouldn't so if you have written it, it would be way up. So when you're looking on it on like milestones or a test, they're gonna have it written in the correct order. But they're showing you that you've done it correctly and basing it off of how you did it. Because technically, how you do it correctly is the alphabet order reverse.
Well, that's really what you trust me. Just don't trust me.
Richard and Kai. You make her like an old married couple. It's still recording. Oh, thank you. So guys, if you happen to go tonight and rewatch the video, it's not really 20